I think the biggest mistake that I see couples making when they come into therapy is this idea that it's to fix the other partner, right? And so a lot of the time, my work is building a relationship with them so that I can kind of pop that bubble that it's not going to be about me fixing the other person, that it's going to be a joint or, like a team effort, right? I'm not going to have
Mhm.
all the answers. It's like we work together to find a solution that like really fits for this particular couple.
This episode is sponsored by TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com. Be sure and check them out and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. For the past 20 plus years, I've been working in the mental health field as a licensed therapist, private practice owner, coach, and consultant. And I've learned a lot the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi there, I'm Gordon Brewer, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your practice, or looking for fresh inspiration, this podcast is here to support you in your journey. Each week, we explore the real-world challenges and opportunities that come with building and growing your private practice. From marketing and money management to ethics, client care, and self-care, we cover it all. You'll hear from leading experts, seasoned clinicians, and innovative voices in the mental health and allied health fields, all sharing their insights and strategies to help you thrive in your practice. So let's jump in and get to today's episode of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Hello, folks. It's Gordon, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast. This is episode number 418 of the podcast, and I'm really looking forward to you hearing from my guest, Erin Valente. Erin is a marriage and family therapist who is located in Los Angeles, California, and one of the things we really kind of hone in on is how you can use couples therapy as kind of a niche or a way of getting to very specific types of clients. And one of the things I'll share is that when I first went into private practice, one of the things that set me apart from most of the other therapists in town was the fact that I did couples work. And I guess depending on where you are in the country, doing couples work is something that I think some therapists shy away from. But Erin and I talk about that in this particular episode and just how couples work is different and how the things that you need to focus on in working with couples is different than working with individuals. And really, I think in many ways, a much more rich way of doing therapy, in that most of our, if you think about it, most of the issues that people have to do with being with other people. And so I think you'll find this interesting. As this podcast has developed over the years, originally I had started just really focusing on just the business side of running a private practice. And that's, I think is important for us to continue to do that. There's so many great resources out there on starting a private practice and how you can hone in on the business side of running things. But one of the things I've done over the last few years is focus more on clinical issues. And I think this is something that people are enjoying. And I'd love to hear back from you on this as far as, would you like to hear more episodes that hone in on clinical issues or clinical techniques or developing niches in a particular clinical area? So shoot me an email and let me know what you think, because I think that's going to help me really kind of help guide the way that the podcast goes over the next year or two. And love to hear back from you. And also, before we get to my conversation with Erin, one of the things I would love to invite you to do is go over to my website, practiceoftherapy.com, and check out the coaching and consulting link there. If you're interested in working with me this year on just different areas of your practice, or maybe feeling stuck in any particular area of running a practice, I love working with people one-on-one. And so I'm taking on some individual consulting clients this year and really focusing in on that. So go over there, and when you go over and click on that link, on the coaching and consulting link at practiceoftherapy.com, you can find, when you go to that landing page, a link to schedule just a 15-minute brainstorming session with me to talk about what you're working on. So I'd love to hear back from you on that. And again, before we get to my conversation with Erin, I'd love for you to hear from a word from our sponsor, TherapyNotes.
Hi there. I'm super excited to welcome you back to the brand new season of Scaling Therapy Practice podcast. This is the show where we encourage you to take deliberate steps towards sustainable growth. I'm your host, James Marland. In season 2, we're specifically focused on one main topic: marketing for mental health providers. Every week, we're going to share about different parts of marketing, giving you simple tips and tricks to grow your mental health business. Every episode from season 2 will have a download or a handout from the show. So sign up for our newsletter so you don't miss these valuable resources. Good news, I'm not going to be doing the show alone. I've got some awesome friends who are going to be joining me from the SciCraft Network. You're going to hear from Lisa Mustard, Steve Bisson, Dawn Gabriel, and other special guests. We've joined forces for this season to share helpful advice on things we've learned and even the mistakes we've made so that you don't have to make them. As the weeks go by, listen to us cover lots of topics on marketing, such as social media, how to market your own therapist, how to speak in public, and even how to start your own podcast or even just guest on podcast shows. We really want to hear from our listeners, so send us your questions, your comments, your thoughts to james@coursecreationstudio.com. That's james@coursecreationstudio.com. Make sure you check out season 1, which is out now, and it has lots of tips on scaling your therapy practice. Just go to coursecreationstudio.com and click the podcast section. So join us every Monday. We're going to learn a lot about intentional and sustainable growth for your therapy practice.
Hi, this is Rachel, Gordon's podcast assistant, and I want to share the platform Gordon trusts for his own practice, TherapyNotes. TherapyNotes is the highest rated EHR, practice management, and billing software for mental health professionals. It's an all-in-one system for scheduling, notes, billing, and secure client communication. And if you ever need help, their 24/7 customer service is always just a call or email away. Their latest update, Therapy Fuel, uses AI to streamline documentation, generating progress notes, creating contact notes from client messages, and even summarizing client history forms, saving therapists hours every week. Are you ready to give it a try? Head to therapynotes.com, click Start My Free Trial, and use the code GORDON to get your first 2 months free. See why TherapyNotes is the most trusted EHR and the one Gordon chooses for his practice. Please enjoy the rest of the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm really glad for you to get to know today Erin Valente. Hi, Erin. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
Good. So Erin is located in Los Angeles and does a lot of couples work. And so as I start with everyone, Erin, tell folks a little more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed.
Yeah. I mean, I've landed into therapy because I've always been incredibly curious about the human experience. I've always been fascinated about how two people can have the same experience and have two totally different interpretations. And so I've always just like dove deep into this subject, and I feel really honored that I get to sit across from people and listen about their experience. And really, it's just more of like a fascination for me than anything.
I do a lot of couples work as well. And
Mhm.
yeah, I've just like you, I've just always been fascinated by the interactions and, you know, exploring the different perspectives on things and, and then just helping couples communicate about that at a different level in a different way.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
always just where like every couple who comes in, they're kind of the same as the last one, but yet totally different, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wait, I know one of the things that you had mentioned in just your information that you had sent was some of the mistakes that maybe couples make in coming to therapy or assumptions they make and that sort of
Mhm.
thing. You want to say more about that?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake that I see couples making when they come into therapy is this idea that it's to fix the other partner, right? And so a lot of the time, my work is building a relationship with them so that I can kind of pop that bubble that it's not going to be about me fixing the other person, that it's going to be a joint or, like a team effort, right? I'm not going to have
Hmm.
all the answers. It's like we work together to find a solution that like really fits for this particular couple.
Right, right. Yeah, I know a lot of the times I'll mention to couples, the burden of change is not on just one person or the other. It's the burden of change is in the relationship. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, and approaching it that way is, I think, really helpful.
yeah.
So, yeah. So, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and how it's, like, sometimes it's just it's one bit of change that will change the entire system. But I feel like it's also the entire system has to know about what the change is and why and how it might affect the
Hmm.
entire system. And there's always a little bit of resistance to that. But once they both can start making shifts, it starts to feel more comfortable.
Right, right. Well, one of the things that you kind of alluded to before we started recording, and I'm interested to get your perspective on this. I know there are a lot of therapists out there that just really shy away from working with couples and
Mm,
are really maybe even feel intimidated by that. I know both you and I are both LMFTs, so it's, we kind of got that training in our work, but how would you say if someone is shying away from doing couples work, but maybe could see the benefit of that? What would you say it is? Yeah.
the benefit of doing couples work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because I say this to individuals and I also say it to couples therapists, right? Like you can only do a certain amount of work in individual therapy. I feel like it's like the real work doesn't start until you're in couples, right? Where that is where true vulnerability sits. It's where these like really kind of harsh mirrors can come up. And I think it says the same thing as a therapist, right? Like working with one person is a certain, skill set, but then when you're working with two individuals that are dysregulated and both of their stories are coming up, it's it's also really a practice for you in your own self-regulation and your own countertransference. I feel like it's like advanced, therapy school, couples work.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it does, I think the other thing too is really being able to focus in on, as I like, as we refer to as the process of what's going on rather than the content, because, and I
Mhm.
think that's where where a lot of therapists get bogged down is that they get caught up in the content about they said this and or their partner said that and that sort of thing, and it gets that back and forth over the content of the problem rather than, okay, let's change the dynamic of the way we communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about that, right, when they're really stuck in the content, you have to be comfortable in saying, like, wait, hold on, let's slow down, right? Like you're having to probably interrupt a little bit more. You're having to make two people feel a little bit more uncomfortable than you would in an individual session. And so I think that's a skill set on its own as a therapist that I feel like it doesn't get stronger until you just jump in and do it.
Right, right. And I know another thing too, and you had mentioned this a little bit, is helping people, particularly in the context of couples work, helping people learn how to emotionally regulate themselves better. You want to say more about that as far as how you approach that?
Yeah, when I talk to my couples, I always say the first thing that we're going to do is self-regulation and co-regulation, because once we're dysregulated, any conversation we have, it just doesn't ever go well. And so with couples, it's always starting with like, how do you know? I say use the words of zone of resiliency, right? Like when are you out of your zone? When have you popped out? And also, how do you know when you're like getting close to popping out? Because once we pop out, it's much harder to come back in versus going like, oh, I'm noticing I'm stressed out. I may not be in a place for a conversation, or like, and then how do you communicate that with your partner? Because if we're just focusing on, like you said, the problem or the content, we usually get dysregulated very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you finding most rewarding in your work right now?
I mean, I just really love my work, to be honest. I
Mm-hmm.
get really connected with my clients. And again, it really is just, I'm a human having a human experience here as well, and getting to sit across from other people who are talking about their experience. It's a really special occupation that we have. So really my work in general is just really fulfilling, the people that I get to work with.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I know what you want to say some more about how you've got your practice structured and how you have done the whole private practice thing.
Yeah, I feel like it's trial and error, right? Like you get your
Uh-huh.
license and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna start a private practice. And when it comes to sort of like marketing and building a business like that, I'm not a business person. So I that was something that I really had to learn. I
Hmm.
recognized that doing therapy all day, every day would create a lot of burnout. So I started sort of diversifying. So I also do ketamine-assisted therapy,
Okay.
which I feel like is like another avenue. It's a different type of therapy. So I feel like when I can shift my brain around a little bit, it keeps me sharp. It keeps me engaged. It keeps me really passionate. Um,
Hmm.
so that is how I have structured it. So I do workshops, I do group coaching, I do individual therapy, I do couples, and I do ketamine. And that I feel like that diversifies enough for me.
Oh, right, right. Yeah. How long have you been doing the ketamine assisted? Because that's
I've
a
been,
really hot topic here lately. I've had several people that are doing that now.
yeah, I've been doing it probably for about 3 or 4 years at this point.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I really got into it because I would identify myself as a trauma therapist, and really I think is also you're talking a lot about dysregulation, and I would find people that would just be so dysregulated, and they would do everything they most possibly could to regulate themselves, and there was just something that was overtaking them. And when I started to learn about the use of psychedelics and how it works with the regulation in the brain, I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. And so
Mhm.
with our license, right, like ketamine is the only medicine that we can administer at this point. So I started
Mhm.
using that with I use it with couples, I use it with individuals. And again, it's just a matter of like which is your medicine, but a lot of people really benefit from it.
All right. So how does it work with couples therapy? That's fascinating.
Yeah, so sometimes I will either do a very low dose and we will continue to process. And again, it just means that the dysregulation isn't taking over the entire session. Because again, I don't know about you, but 50 minutes to do a couple session with two people just never feels like enough. I feel like the
Right.
majority of it
Right.
is working on regulation, and we really don't touch too much. But with the ketamine sessions, I do them longer, and they get to a place where they can really hear each other. We're not just working on calming down or defending or any of that. It kind of bypasses all of that. So it works really
Hmm.
well for that. I also use it well, if one person is working through something that is getting in the way of the couple's work, I have the other partner be a witness to that. So we use the
Mm-hmm.
ketamine to work through something in particular, kind of like at a faster pace than we would in individual therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And the partner's holding space.
Right, right. That's a I love that idea of being able to have the partner be a witness to it, because I think that creates vulnerability and empathy and all of that kind of stuff with the couple.
Looking for a Valentine's gift she'll truly love? 1-800-Flowers.com knows what she wants. For 50 years, 1-800-Flowers has helped guys like you get it right, delivering millions of fresh Valentine's roses nationwide. 1-800-Flowers offers premium fresh-cut flowers backed by their 7-day freshness guarantee, plus same-day delivery when you need them on time. Valentine's is coming up and bouquets are selling fast, so don't wait on this. Order today at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.
Before we had AT&T Business Wireless coverage, our delivery GPS wasn't the most reliable. Once our driver had to do a 14-point turn to get back on route. A 14-point turn! An influencer even live streamed the whole thing. Not good for business. Now with AT&T Business Wireless, routes are updating on the fly and deliveries are on time. And the influencer did get us 53 new followers though.
AT&T Business Wireless. Connecting changes everything.
Yeah, and I think it also shows where we all have individual work, and there's a difference between our partner being the witness to that versus it's our partner's responsibility to fix it or fill it or
Mm-hmm.
make it better. Because I think that's the other mistake that I see with couples when they come in is that, one person might be feeling, they might have had trauma in their background, and, it comes up in the couple's dynamic and it becomes, I need my partner to help me make me feel safe, or I need my partner to make me not feel alone. And it's like, yes, to a certain extent, but especially
Mm-hmm.
when it's coming from a trauma or a childhood wound, your partner's never going to be able to feel that for you. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I have one partner be witness, they're also learning how to be a witness without jumping in and saving.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to approach it that way.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so the other parts of the other ways in which you've diversified kind of your practice, what are the other things besides ketamine that you are really enjoying right now?
Right now, I'm building out a group coaching program, which I'm really
Mm-hmm.
excited about. And it does have a lot to do with couples, right? Because again, when you're going into couples therapy, it is this feeling of fix my partner. And so this group coaching is going to be about like heal yourself, heal your relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
what happens when we really work on our sort of false beliefs around relationships, or what we think our needs in our relationships, and how it can create sort of painful patterning in relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is for people who are in a relationship or just coming out of a relationship that are really trying to break a pattern that they are stuck in.
Yeah. Yeah. Say more about that as far as the patterns that you see, particularly, I guess, where, people are, maybe in transition with relationships and that kind of thing. Because I know that's a pretty hot topic here lately.
Yeah. When people,
Yeah.
usually I could ask someone, well, what happened in your last 3 relationships? It's going to sound like a different story, but it usually always has a common wound, right? They usually come out of a relationship feeling the same way, whether it's, I wasn't appreciated, I wasn't seen, they always leave me, there's something wrong with me. There's always sort of this core wound. And I think the false belief is thinking that the relationship showed that to be true. And the truth is that belief really kind of came in before any of those relationships. And so
Yeah.
the work that I try to do with my couples, and I always try to do with my individuals, is this is a wound that like you are going to probably forever be healing.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to recognize when you're being led by that wound and how you can regulate, recenter, and be led by, I say self, higher self, knowing, whatever word, right? Like that part of ourselves that we can really trust.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a lot of the work that I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. It's, this that whole somatic kind of approach of, teaching those things. And so I know there's lots of different woundings, but what do you see show up a lot as far as people's various wounds within their relationships?
I think the most common one I see is I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really more I am not enough. I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking of other ones, but they all kind of land in the same place of I'm not enough.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
yeah. Or
Yeah.
I feel like the other one I'm seeing a lot is I am broken,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which breaks my heart because
Yeah.
we're not
Yeah.
broken, right? And
Right.
I
Right.
think one of the I always say that there's like these little gifts of being a therapist, right? There's these little knowings we get because we sit across from people all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
is that we're all working on something and we're all working on something that we will probably be working on for the rest of our lives. And
Mm-hmm.
and that's part of the human experience.
Right. And I think being able to hear that in the therapy room of just, you're not broken, you're not damaged goods, that just brings up a whole lot of emotion for people. And that's, I think, really that's when change really begins to occur, when they're able to kind of connect those dots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, Erin, I know we've got to be mindful of our time, but what are some of the things? I know one of the things we chatted a little bit about was you've got a private podcast that you do with people that subscribe to your email list and that kind of thing. You want to say more about that?
Yeah, so it's a 4-part series and it's really skills based. So it's really about the experience of happiness, right? How to experience happiness and what gets in the way of that. And one of the episodes does go into trauma and how trauma affects that and just really clear skills that you can do to understand your nervous system, to help regulate your nervous system so that you can make more space for the experience of happiness or joy. So
Yeah.
it's actually a very uplifting one.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, and it's helping you just kind of build a following to where you can kind of funnel people into the groups that the group coaching and that sort of thing. Did I
Yeah,
get that right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's for people who are going to be interested in doing this work. And so I feel like the podcast is really like this foundational information. And I think it's foundational information that people who want to do this work are going to be really interested in. And it's very digestible. And you walk out going, oh, okay, I understand myself a little bit better. And I actually have some skills to make myself feel a little bit better.
All right. Right. Yeah, that's great. And I had you mention that just because I know there are a lot of people that are listeners to this podcast that are looking for ways to kind of diversify their income and other ways to do the work that they do other than as I like to say, the one-to-one way of doing work to the one-to-many. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got three kiddos at home as well. And so it's like I
Mm-hmm.
would love to sit and do therapy all day, every day. But there is, I always remind people that it's not hour to hour, right? Like you carry your clients with you. And
Mm-hmm.
there's only kind of so much space that you can hold for yourself, for others, and for your family and for your loved ones. And I feel like the journey of a therapist is always like knowing where the limits are. Mhm.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. And setting those boundaries for yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Well, Erin, tell folks how they can connect with you and find out more about you and the work you're doing.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to find me is on Instagram at Healing the Human Experience. You can find my website from there. You can book sessions with me. You can get on the podcast list for there. It's all there. It's where all the information lies.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
great. And we'll have links in the show notes and the show summary for people to access that easily. Well, Erin, I hope that this has been great, and I hope to maybe have another conversation with you again here soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You have a beautiful day.
You too. Well, again, a big thanks to Erin for joining me on the podcast. And be sure to check out her things. You'll find links here in the show notes and the show summary to find out about her private podcast and what she's doing there, along with all the other great resources that she's putting out with the work that she does. So again, thanks to Erin. Hopefully we'll have her back on the podcast again before too long. And again, if you're interested in working with me and doing some consulting, I'd invite you to go over to the website, practiceoftherapy.com, and click on that link that says coaching and consulting, and you kind of get guided through the process of connecting with me to see if we might be a good fit in working together on those kinds of things. And also, big thanks to TherapyNotes for being a sponsor of this podcast. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice and absolutely couldn't live without them. And they are constantly improving their platform and have got so many great features now that are just invaluable for in running a private practice, anywhere from AI assistance and writing session notes to also being able to do some different improvement measures and that sort of thing with your clients. So be sure and check it out. Go to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and be sure and use that promo code, just Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. So thanks again, folks, for joining me on this particular episode. And do take time to follow us or subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. So take care, folks. You have been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the PsychCraft network of podcasts. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free Private Practice Startup Guide at practiceoftherapy.com. And to find more great podcasts like this one, please visit the PsychCraft Network at psychcraftnetwork.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. And if you need help in these areas, be sure to find the right professional to help you with these things.
Instacart helps you get what you need fast. Like when the watch party at your place finally makes it out of the group chat, suddenly you need snacks, drinks, and all the things nobody planned for. With Instacart, you can get groceries and party essentials delivered. Just download the app, place your order, and it shows up in as fast as 30 minutes. That way, hosting feels easy and it looks like you had a plan all along. Get the Instacart app today and get game day deals.